tribe. I am so happy and so excited that we're going to be catching up with Fiona Quinn. Fiona, how are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fabulous. So Fiona, we were actually, just before we hit record, we were just chatting about when we last spoke. So we actually first spoke with you back in February 2018, which seems absolutely crazy. And then you told us more about your life, being an adventurer, a speaker, an entrepreneur, pushing your limits, going on expeditions. You shared more about your 2017 when you walked and cycled the length of Great Britain. And we also started talking about your big challenge in 2018 that you did. But before we get into that, do you just want to introduce yourself, tell me a little bit more about you for those people who haven't heard your first episode?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the last, I guess, maybe 4 years, I started going on slightly smaller and then slightly bigger adventures and then writing and speaking about them. I also run a business called Adventure Book Club, where we read awesome adventure books every month and then do various meetups. And I now actually have like a proper job as well. So I work as head of experiences for a company called Borrow a Boat. So all kind of adventure related and awesome stuff outside.
Ooh, I love it. So absolutely amazing. So if you haven't listened to Fiona's first episode, then please do go back and listen to that. That was back in February 6th, 2018. But Fiona, tell us about your 2018. How did it start? Talk us through it.
Yeah, so it was a little bit mad, actually. It's kind of funny looking back. So I'm just kind of in the process of writing the book at the moment. So kind of going back and revisiting it all is a little bit odd to think, wow, did that actually happen? So when we were last speaking, I guess I was in the planning stages of what was really my biggest expedition yet. So the plan was to stand up paddleboard from Land's End to John O'Groats. No one had ever done it before. And as you mentioned, I'd previously walked and cycled it. So it would kind of complete my length of Britain triathlon. Yeah, I guess I had lots of planning to do. I'm scared of the sea as well, which kind of presented a little bit of an issue. And because I'm scared of the sea, I'd only paddleboarded on the sea 3 times before I left. So I had to find a support boat, fund it in some way. I had to get a crew for that boat and then actually do it, right? Actually go out to sea and paddleboard for about 800 miles. It wasn't all.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it was kind of a crazy idea. And it's funny, actually, like looking back as to how much people didn't think I'd be able to do it. So sort of even before, like a week before I was about to leave, people were like, you're not really going to do this, are you? This is like it's a nice idea, but like you're scared of the sea and you don't have any of like the support boat and support crew that you need yet. But once I'd had this idea in my mind, there was just no way I wasn't going to like keep pushing and try and make it happen. So in, I can't remember the exact date. I think it might have been the 21st of April. I set off from Land's End. So I'd managed to find a photographer who could kind of capture the adventure for me. And then I just hired a local support boat and skipper for 2 days because I had a good weather window. And I paddled out from Land's End. And it didn't start particularly well. The weather was much worse than we were expecting. And I was sort of being blown out towards the Atlantic. But I managed to make it round to St. Ives in those first 2 days. And then from there up the rest of the country, really.
Oh, so this is so exciting. But let me just go back to one of the first things that you said, being scared of the sea. So a big challenge to do when you are scared of the sea. Where did your fear of the sea come from? And how did you face that fear?
Yeah, so I nearly drowned when I was a child. So I can't remember exactly how old I was. Maybe I was about 6 or something, I think. And I was just in a swimming pool with my family and I'd been going down a slide and maybe I was younger than 6. I couldn't swim yet, basically. And I thought my mum was at the bottom of the slide and she wasn't. So I kind of, and the lifeguard didn't save me. I actually ended up saving myself. But so ever since then, I've just been really scared, not of swimming pools, oddly, because I know that I can save myself in them, but of deep open water, just the idea of being out of my depth and not being able to save myself just terrifies me. And then, of course, with the sea, there's everything that's below the surface and you don't know what's lurking. So when I was initially coming up with this idea, when I was walking the length of Britain, I was kind of looking out to sea going, could I do that? Could I make this into a triathlon? No, that's a stupid idea. I'd be terrified. But for some reason, just the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I really want to see if I could face that fear. Like, what if I could overcome it enough to do the length of Britain on a paddleboard? Like, I don't have to be in the water, right, if I'm on a paddleboard. Yeah, so I just kind of, in the end, it sort of became a reason to do it rather than a reason not to do it.
And so you said you'd only been on like the sea 3 times. Were you going out with other people to build your confidence, or how did you face your fear? Were there any practical steps that you took?
Well, so of those 3 times, the very first time was in Barcelona, was the first time I ever paddleboarded. That was about 6 years ago. Since then, I'd been doing it mainly on sort of rivers and lakes. And then the 2 times before I left was sort of as a training, I guess. So I went out near Bristol with a guy who runs SUP Bristol, and he's awesome and he was really supportive. And then he sort of gave me a bit of a skills session, I guess. So we went out, but I totally wiped out and got dumped on the beach by all the waves and was like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is crazy. Like, I'm so scared. And I've only been doing it for like 10 minutes. But I think the main thing in terms of not necessarily overcoming the fear, like I'm still definitely scared of the sea. But in terms of being able to rationalize it enough to face it, was really just doing it. Like just going out there every day, feeling physically sick every time I got off the support boat, but doing it anyway, and waiting for good weather. Like we spent, so it was 81 days in all, the whole expedition, but only 35 of those were paddling. So we waited for good weather. You know, I wanted it to be as flat as possible and as favourable conditions as I could make it.
And you said you needed to get like a support boat and a support crew. How did that go, and how did you pay for that? And yeah, how did you figure that out?
Well, initially I was thinking like, no one's ever paddleboarded it before. It'd be a world first. I'd also be the first woman to do Length Britain Triathlon. In the adventure world, this sounds like kind of cool, so maybe someone would sponsor me. In reality, I couldn't get any cash sponsorship. I got some kit from some awesome sponsors, but no money, so I had to self-fund in the end. I managed to buy a support boat, knowing nothing about boats or sailing. Luckily, it was an amazing boat, and I've since sold her on to another adventurer for the same amount, so I managed to cover my costs. So I'm incredibly lucky to be able to find funding to do that. But yeah, that was the way that I funded it.
How much did it cost you then to do this whole challenge? Do you want to say?
Well, so the boat itself was 17,000. So I had to take a loan out, like a personal loan, in order to fund it. But, you know, it was an adventure of a lifetime, and I kind of felt like if I didn't do this, if I didn't try and face my fear, then I'd definitely regret it. And the one thing we can never get more of in life is time. You can always get more money, but time is the one thing that we all should hold precious, I think. So for me, that was more important.
What, that's a big commitment, taking out a personal loan to pay for the boat and to pay for the expedition. Did that scare you? Did that worry you?
No, not really. Like, maybe I have a weird lack of I don't know what the word would be. Like I don't know. It was a stretch, but it was within my financial means, which I was, as I say, very lucky to have. And I just figured if I get a job afterwards, then that'll pay it off. So I mean, it's the opposite, right? You can either save up for a couple of years and then go and do an adventure, or you can take the cheats way and get a loan and then pay it off. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think for me, especially with like debt, and I just don't really like it like at all. Like I really like struggle with it. And that, you know how you're fearful of like the sea, I suppose I'm like fearful of like getting into debt basically. But let's go back to the start of the challenge. Okay, so you're going to attempt the stand-up paddleboarding. You're waiting for the good weather. You've got a support crew. You've got a photographer. Talk us through like the first couple of days. Like, how did it go? Was it what you were expecting things to be like?
As I sort of mentioned, the first day was super windy. We were expecting about 10 miles an hour of wind, which would have been fine. But then it actually ended up being 20, and it was an offshore, so it was pushing me away from the land out into the Atlantic. And like, this is, you know, the 4th time I paddleboarded on the sea. So I was really struggling with the physical, like, you know, I didn't train for this, the physical challenge of trying to combat 20 mile an hour winds. It was super tough. And I think I only made about 5 miles that first day. And so in terms of how long I could paddle every day, it was very much based around the tide. So I could paddle every 6 hours on, 6 hours off. But because it was only me and my photographer Liam for a lot of it, he ended up skippering me further north after those first 2 days. We could only do one tide a day. So I only had a 6-hour window to make as much ground as I could each day when it was good weather. And so that first day was just sort of 5 miles. And then the next day I managed to make it round to St. Ives, which was awesome. The second day just felt so much stronger. And I think the sea was not calmer. There was bigger swell the second day, but the wind had died down, and I just felt like I had something to prove, I guess. So the second day I really hammered it and managed to get around to St. Ives. And then from there, kept going up the coast of Cornwall, over to Lundy Island, which was just magical. We had really glassy water that day. I had dolphins come and swim next to me on my board, next to the support boat as well. and then over to Wales and then over to Ireland.
Tell us more about the crossing the Irish Sea and becoming the first woman in history to stand up paddleboard across it. How did it go?
So we had, I think it was about a 2-week wait. So once I'd got over to Wales, we were then waiting in Milford Haven Marina for good weather. Because obviously, like the Irish Sea, I think it's about 40 miles across. You obviously lose sight of land. That's a long way, even in a boat. Like if the weather turns, and it can do in the Irish Sea because it's such an exposed area, that that's a good sort of 4 or 5 hours to get to land, even in a boat. So we had to make sure we waited for a really good weather day, and the day came and it was super foggy, and I couldn't even really see land as I was leaving. But the water was like glass, so that was, for me, the main thing was having flat, calm seas made me feel much more secure and less scared. Because it was foggy, like we didn't really see any other boats pretty much the whole day, apart from at one point we saw a massive shipping container come out of the fog.
Probably not what you want to see.
No, luckily it was far enough away that it didn't scare us or make us change course. But it was cool. But it was it's a funny one, right? Because it sort of sounds like quite a big achievement, but to me, it was just another day's paddling. It was obviously a much longer distance, and I was on the water for, I think it was about 12 hours paddling, and we were out there for 15 hours in all, so a couple of breaks along the way. And again, we had dolphins. That's always such a magical point of the day, when they come and swim next to you, and they really sort of just look up through the water and kind of check you out. It's very magical.
So you're over in Ireland. Are you staying in accommodation? Are you living on the boat? What are you doing about sort of food and resupply and sleeping? How's that all working?
So that was another reason of having the support boat. So it was a 32-foot sailing yacht. So we had 2 cabins. So we would live on the support boat. As I say, mainly just me and Liam for most of it, but we also had some deckhands and then another skipper come and join us for various parts along the way as well. The boat had sofas so we could accommodate, probably up to 8 at a push. So yeah, we'd sleep on the support boat. We'd have there's a little kitchen in there. There's a toilet. So it's kind of like a support van on the water, really. And we would either go and anchor in a bay or find a marina to sleep in overnight. And that was our accommodation.
What would you say was the biggest challenge on your whole trip of stand-up paddleboarding Britain?
Certainly on this one, having support crew is awesome. Having that camaraderie and the boost in morale and the huge amount of support that they gave me, and it wouldn't have been possible without them. But obviously that's a huge logistical issue that you don't have when you're solo adventuring. And that was the first time I'd ever had support. So that was a huge learning curve for me. And it was tricky, but it was one that I very much enjoyed.
Did you feel like responsible for your support crew as well?
Oh, massively, right? So, I mean, they were all volunteers. I don't have the funding to pay them. So I had to ask these people to give up their time and follow a crazy woman up the length of Britain. So making sure that they enjoyed it and they wanted to still be there was a huge responsibility. But also obviously keeping them all safe and making sure that we weren't going out in stupid weather conditions, and then we were anchoring in places where people could actually get a good night's sleep, and all that kind of stuff was definitely a responsibility.
Yeah. What about emotionally? Because obviously, it's tiring when you're dealing with fears and you're doing physical exertion, and then you're also worried about, your safety and everything else that's going on. Emotionally, how did you cope with everything?
I don't know. When I get on an adventure, I'm kind of just a bit dog-headed about it and just get on with it. And I've got this goal of getting to the end and exploring along the way, and that kind of just pulls me through, I think. But also, I guess particularly that I didn't naturally get on this adventure that you would on others, it's just having time alone. Obviously, if I'm normally walking or cycling the length of Britain and I'm doing it solo and self-supported, there's quite a lot of time alone. I get to think and process stuff. And being out on the water, obviously I'm alone then, but it's just not the same because I'm so concentrated on not falling in. So making sure that I had time alone on land really became important on this trip. So when we were in harbours, I'd often go off for sort of a long walk on my own for an hour or two. And that really helped me clear my head and get my thoughts in order.
You were going for 3 new world records. Do you want to share what those world records are and what the outcomes were?
Yeah, so I got, as you mentioned before, first woman to paddleboard across the Irish Sea. I was the first person to stand up paddleboard the length of Britain on an inflatable board, and become the first woman to do a length of Britain triathlon-ish because I paddleboarded rather than swam.
What was it like finishing the challenge?
It's always weird getting to the end, I think, of an adventure. You're oh, so that's over then. going to probably go home. It kind of feels a bit like an anticlimax, but this time it was really nice having my crew with there that had come like most of the way with me and being able to celebrate with them. And so there were some members of the public that sort of clapped me in at John O'Groat. So like, here's this weird woman out in the North Sea on a paddleboard. So that was really nice. And it was really great also having my sponsors being super supportive and follow me along the way and giving me encouragement. So it was lovely to have this as kind of a team success rather than just a solo endeavour.
Do you just want to share some stats from the challenge then? So the distances that you stand-up paddleboarded, the days that you were out paddling, like all those lovely facts and figures.
Yeah. So it was about 800 miles in all. It was 81 days, the whole expedition, but just 35 of those were paddling. I didn't count the paddle strokes, so I don't know.
How many dolphins seen?
Oh yeah, I think we had about 4 or 5 dolphin sightings throughout the trip, which was awesome. Loads of jellyfish. There was tons and tons of jellyfish, particularly further north. There was one whale sighting actually, although I didn't actually see it. The whale was behind me. But my crew had one whale sighting.
I was going to say, because like the question, I suppose the answer that I really wanted for you to give, and you gave it earlier, was like, did doing this challenge help you to overcome your fear of the sea? And it hasn't.
No, I mean, like being out. So in my job, I go sailing for my job. And we went out to Greece in May. So this was like almost a full year after I'd done the challenge. And for the first few days being out on a boat and it's really windy and the boat's sort of sideways because we're catching the wind in the sails. And like I was crying down below, like I was so scared. But then after a few days, I get used to it and then I quite enjoy it. So it's kind of a weird one. Like I'm definitely scared of the sea still. But I think having done this, I just have, after a few days, I managed to sort of deal with that fear to the point where I can enjoy it.
I mean, talking about the sea, your next challenge it's called the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Do you want to share more about what the Mediterranean challenge is, where the idea came from and what it is that you're doing?
Yeah. So I feel like I've done Britain. Like I know Britain pretty well now. So I wanted to go somewhere warmer, somewhere different. And I'd not really ever explored Europe very much. Like I've been on the odd holiday, but I'd never really adventured there. So I kind of quite liked the idea of getting back on my bike. Like it's a mode of transport that I know and I'm comfortable with. And then to challenge myself in a different location. So the idea of the challenge was to cycle the length of the Mediterranean, follow the coast from Gibraltar to Athens. So it's about 4,000 miles. And I thought it would take me 2 months. I figured that given I'd cycled toured before, just up my mileage a bit, it'd be fine. That would be the challenge element. But in reality, it was a little bit different. And so in spring this year, I set off from Gibraltar and I managed to make it by various means to Nice in France, where sort of I ended part 1 of the adventure. It was very different to what I expected. Certainly, Spain is huge, which I don't think I appreciated before I left. And the sort of road network, I guess, is much less developed, certainly in the south of Spain, than it is in Britain or in like northern Spain or France. So it's incredibly slow going. The sort of the way the land was developed down there is they're just sort of chunks between the beach and a main sort of highway. So there's no, the developers haven't developed any kind of small back roads that kind of link up these sections of land. So you've either got to cycle on the beach or the highway pretty much. And I was only covering 40 miles a day rather than 100. And it sort of looked like it was going to take 3 times as long. And I just didn't have a spare 6 months. So it was an incredible start to an adventure. And I really enjoyed it, and seeing the differences between sort of the cycle infrastructure and culture around cycling between France and Spain was really interesting. But yeah, so that's part 1's done. And I don't know what's going to happen about part 2.
Yeah. What are you thinking at the moment?
It would be nice to do it, but I'm not like, it's funny with SUP Britain, even though I'm scared of the sea and like no one had ever done it before and loads of people have cycled across Europe, like there was just something about SUP Britain that I just felt compelled to do. But with this cycling trip across Europe, I just don't feel the same way. And I think it's really important that no matter what you take on in life, whether it's an adventure or a new job or a new business or whatever, that you should really want that. And if it doesn't pull you strongly, then maybe don't do it. And that's kind of how I feel about the Med. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen with part 2, to be honest. I think it would be like a nice to do if I find the time. But yeah, it's not in my diary yet.
Do you think it makes it more difficult because you're sort of a public person? You know, you're well known. You've got, you know, on your website, you've shared what you're going to do, and then for you to sort of do part one, you know, cycle from Gibraltar to France, and then almost to just sort of lose that motivation or to lose that passion, and then to almost have to decide not to go ahead with it because it's in such a public space. Does that impact on your decision making or not really?
I think it can do, and I think it's easy to go, oh my gosh, everyone's going to think I'm a terrible person, and like they're going to think I said I was going to do this thing and I didn't do it. But in reality, like, it's an adventure. Like, nobody really cares. Like, it would be awesome to do it and to share the stories, but in the grand scheme of things, I think we place a lot more emphasis on failure than we should. And I don't see it as a failure. Like, I cycled from Gibraltar to France, and that was awesome. Like, that was a fun trip. So for me, that's enough. Like, I don't feel like I have to always win, to always succeed. Like, that's not real life. So I'm more than happy to be like, you know what, this isn't working for me, so I'm not going to do it. And I think that's something that maybe some of us should do more in our lives. If something's not working, just be honest and move on.
I really agree, because I think it takes a huge amount of courage to actually reflect and think, actually, I know I said I wanted to do this, but actually things change, life changes, and you've got to be able to face up to that and be like, do you know what, that's not what I want to be doing anymore. It doesn't light my soul on fire, and you've got to reevaluate, and it's 100% okay to do that.
Absolutely. And I think that sort of comes back to what I get from adventure, really, is that it just gives me more confidence to do stuff on my own terms, like to accept, like, this is how I'm feeling, and however that is okay, and I can make my own choices in my own life. Like, I think that's a really good confidence sort of boost that I get from doing adventure.
On the cycle trip, were you camping? Were you staying in hostels? Were you meeting many other cyclists out there? Was there much of like a bikepacking community out there?
Actually, there wasn't as much as I was expecting. Like, stupidly, I hadn't accounted for the fact that the ground is super hard out there. Like, it's not British, it's cozy fields. It's, hard, arid ground. So my tent pegs wouldn't go in. So I couldn't actually camp very easily, which I hadn't accounted for. So I camped one night. Otherwise, I was in Airbnbs, which was actually a really nice way of meeting local people. And I really struggled to meet people on the trip, actually, to find suitable hostels or other ways of meeting people. And there didn't seem to be that many people cycling this particular route. I've chatted to some other people. I know someone who ran the route, and she also said it was horrendous and she hated running it, and she actually quit too. So maybe this just isn't a very good route to go adventuring on, and all the adventurers are somewhere else. So I think that might be the case.
So one of the other things that you do is you run a book club for the adventurously minded, which is fantastic. So tell us more about that, because I believe there's also been a new model, or you've made some changes to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we read a different adventure book every month. It's usually based around a theme, and then I give 3 options, and our members vote for which book they want to read. They then get an Amazon voucher for the value of the ebook, so they can either get a digital copy or a paper copy, or if they've read it before, they can pick another book. But hopefully we all read the same book, and then we can chat about it online, share our thoughts. And then the change that you're referring to there is that we used to have monthly meetups in London, but that's, lots of people are busy these days. So rather than just meeting in a cafe to discuss the book, we've kind of decided to change the model slightly and instead meet up once a quarter, but go for more of an adventure together. So the idea being that we spend 1 or 2 days cycling, hiking, swimming, paddleboarding, doing various different things throughout the year to actually get us outside and doing some of the things that maybe we're reading about.
Oh my God, that sounds fantastic. So you say every quarter. What was the example of the last one you did, or what's the one that you've got coming up?
So the last one was we cycled, just kept it very super local for the first one. We cycled through London, saw different parts of London, still included coffee and cake, but then went for a swim as well. So we went and did a little bit of wild swimming. So, and I think the next one is probably going to be, we're going to hop over to Bristol and maybe go and do some paddleboarding. We might try and get some camping in there too. Yeah, just lots of kind of fun, easy ways to get outside and spend time together. What
sort of people are a member of the group?
It's a real diverse mix. So we've got some members who are proper hardcore adventurers, love getting outside super regularly. Others maybe just sort of like really like reading about it, or sort of pottering in local park walks and cycling locally. So it's kind of a diverse mix, also diverse in terms of what they do for career and all that kind of stuff. So it's really nice to meet people who have that adventure spirit in common, and that love of reading as well, to share stories with.
So tell us more about what you've got coming up next.
Well, so I've kind of got this a little bit of an idea that I'd really like to another paddleboarding challenge, a much smaller one this time, where I'd really like to paddleboard across the English Channel, but I don't want to do it in the obvious way. So I'm not going to go over from Dover to Calais. I'm actually going to go slightly further west and go from Gibraltar down to Jersey is the plan. So I think it's about 120 miles, probably take about 2 days, I think. But I've never been to the Channel Islands, so it'd be really nice to head over that way and go and explore somewhere new.
And would you do the full 2 days on the paddleboard?
So I'd have a support boat, a bit like SUP Britain. So I'd have probably a sailing yacht again, another support boat, and with crew, so I could sort of nap on the boat and then have meals and stuff. But to keep going in one trip, so we'd keep on the sea on those breaks and then get paddleboarding again.
When's a good time of year to do that?
Probably spring, actually. I was looking at trying to do it at the end of the summer, but it's just not fitting in timing wise. So I think spring's a pretty good time to go when the weather's starting to get a bit better, but it's not super hot yet.
With stand-up paddleboarding, what are you doing for training and for fitness? Are you training in the gym? Are you just sort of getting out like every weekend? Like, how are you managing to fit that in around your new job?
So I'm very much an amateur. I've never trained for anything. I think I kind of maybe have a base level of fitness just from hiking over sort of weekends and cycling and just generally being outside. And like I walk to work every day. Yeah, I've never done any kind of specific training. Usually the adventures that I do, to be fair, they're usually quite long distance. So sort of the first week or two is the training in itself. But with this shorter one across the channel, I think, max sort of 2 to 3 days. So I'll probably have to do a little bit of sort of warming up and getting my body back to paddleboarding before I leave in the spring. But other than that, that's probably all I'll do, to be honest. And I'll just take, like, I'm not trying to race there, just take it at my own pace and how my body allows and see what happens.
Yeah. So one of the things, I can't remember if you've mentioned this during our call now or if we spoke about it earlier, but you are actually writing a book at the moment. Do you just want to share more about your book, how it's coming along? Have you got a title? And what's it going to be about?
Yeah, so it's about SUP Britain trip from last year, so paddleboarding the length of Britain. And it's kind of all the stories really of like kind of the stuff we discussed, but also a bit more as well, from how I organised it to my crew, like what happened along the way, the challenges, the things that went wrong, the things that went well, but also the stories from my crew. So like their first, they did loads of things that they'd never done before, which was really nice. So my photographer, Liam, who ended up being my skipper, he'd never skippered a boat before in his life. So that was a massive challenge for him. But also Aileen, my deckhand, she had never been on a boat before. She'd never driven any kind of motorised vehicle before. So we got her to drive the boat. She'd never paddleboarded before. So there's loads of firsts throughout the whole team. And the book really just shares all of those stories. And my working title for it is Start Before You're Ready, because I was not ready at all. And I don't think they were for their firsts, my crew. So it's kind of nice to share that idea, I think, of just having a go, whether you think you're ready or not.
Yeah. Oh, that's great advice. I love that, because actually so many times you've never 100% going to be ready. It's just sometimes you've just got to start. I think that's the key word, which I love, is just starting. Like start. Like just try it and see, and you will figure it out as you go. Best of luck with the book. Do let us know when it goes live, and we'll help to give it a shout out and help to promote it, because it sounds absolutely awesome.
Thank you.
But Fiona, are you ready to mix things up now? We're going to do some quick fire questions. My questions may be quick, but your answers don't necessarily have to be that quick. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Are you a morning or evening person?
Morning.
What time's your alarm go off?
So I usually get up about 6, and then I spend an hour in the morning writing, whether that's for the book or for other things that I'm working on. And then I head to work. So I love being up early and before everybody else and getting a few extra hours in.
Tea or coffee?
Tea probably. I think tea at home, coffee at work. Yeah.
Do you have a particular flavour? You like chamomile, builders, red?
Oh yeah, very much like a build English breakfast kind of girl, and a flat white in terms of coffee.
So I know that you are a regular reader, obviously running the Adventure Book Club, but what book are you currently reading at the moment?
Oh, well, so last month we read a book called Rest which was really, really interesting. And I thought initially like, oh yeah, of course, like resting is good for you. But it came up with some really good tips, kind of about creativity, actually. So if you're writing a book or trying to pull something together, one of the top tips it gave was to finish before you're done, which sounds kind of funny, but in terms of writing, like if you finish your writing for the day, when you still have something more to say, then when you come back to it tomorrow, it makes it a lot easier to get going again, which I've been implementing myself on the book, and it's been really, really helpful.
What about movies? Do you have a favourite movie, film?
Oh gosh, not really.
Do you have a Netflix subscription or an Amazon Prime subscription?
I don't. I'm one of those people that if I'm around your flat, I'll just use yours.
Fair enough. So no favourite movies or TV shows, or you just not like a TV type of person?
I don't watch a lot of TV, to be honest. I used to, but I just don't anymore. I just tend to be outside or writing or doing other stuff. I do watch films, but I tend to just watch whatever's new and looks good rather than having a go-to favourite one. What
about music? What type of music do you like to listen to?
Again, I don't really have a favourite. I just kind of stick the radio on when I'm in the car or wherever I am. But a Radio 1 maybe is a favourite, I guess.
What about food? So normal food that you like to eat in your everyday life, and then sort of your stand-up paddleboarding, your SUP food. What are you eating while you're on like expeditions and doing challenges?
So definitely on expedition, which you might know about me, is I quite like a little bit of cake. So I'm definitely fueled by cake. I'm not the kind of person that sort of, obsesses over their diet, which maybe is a bad thing. But for me, it's as much a morale boost as it is a physical sort of energy boost. But I don't actually eat a huge amount of cake when I'm not adventuring. I try not to anyway. So I guess when I'm not adventuring, my favourite food, just something I guess a bit traditional and stodgy, like maybe some chips or some fish or a curry or something like that. But I'm vegetarian, so nothing, pescatarian, so nothing meat based.
Got you. So do you like curried or cheese on chips? Cheesy chips?
Yeah.
Curry and cheesy chips. And what's your favourite type of cake?
So I have this recipe for a lemon and blueberry cake it's like drizzled with limoncello. So it's really moist, and I just love lemon. So that's my go-to.
Oh, I like it. Favourite kit, favourite gear?
Probably my paddleboard, actually.
Does your paddleboard have a name?
No, I've never named any of my kit.
That's okay, you don't have to.
It sounds like everyone names their kit, and I'm like, I don't have a name, I don't know.
Well, I've spoken to a lot of women recently who've got bikes, and so everybody's got like a name for their bike, and I was like, oh, okay. So I just didn't know if it was the thing in like paddleboarding, if you name your paddleboard.
Maybe I'm just the one that hasn't. Maybe I need to come up with a name. And if anyone's got any names that they can suggest to me, I'd be glad to receive them.
What do you do for rest and relaxation?
Read. I'm definitely reading it in the evenings. It helps me before I go to sleep. But also just a kind of casual, slow walk is always quite nice. Just to meander somewhere and be on my own outside is a really nice way to relax.
Lovely. And are you mountains or beach?
Ooh. Probably hills. I don't like a proper mountain like Mont Blanc and that kind of thing. It just doesn't appear it looks lovely, but I don't particularly want to be on the top of it. But I do like a good hill walk is lovely. Like the Lake District is my favourite place in the UK. It's just gorgeous.
What about a mantra or a favourite quote or any way that you live words that you live your life by? I guess just believing that I'm more capable than I think I am. I think that's quite a good sort of push, that no matter what I'm working on, whether that's sort of in my day job or adventure or writing, that I can do this. I just need to believe that I can, and then it makes it a lot easier. Absolutely. Believe. It's so powerful to have that belief in yourself. And Fiona, where's the best place for people to find more information out about you and to follow your journeys online? So you can catch me on all social media. It's Fiona L. Quinn, and then my website is the same, FionaLQuinn.com. Fantastic. Fiona, it's been amazing having you back on the Tough Girl Podcast Extra to share more about what you've been up to. Sorry.
It's been amazing, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, that was so cheesy. But 3 world records, absolutely incredible. Best of luck with the Channel crossing, your next big adventure, and keep us updated about the book. And just thank you so much for coming back on to share. It's been super fun to have you back.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey tribe, how you doing? I was about to say, what's up? But like, what's up? Get it? Oh my God, that's just so cheesy and embarrassing. Anyway, carry on, Sarah. For anybody who's listening to the Tough Girl Podcast Extra for the first time, I'm sorry for all the very bad puns. But my name is Sarah Williams. I'm the host of the Tough Girl Podcast and the Tough Girl Podcast Extra. And Tough Girl Podcast Extra is when we go back and speak with previous guests and find out what they've been up to. So what I want to do is just give you a couple of examples of Tough Girl Extra episodes that we have. And you can find all of this information available at toughgirlchallenges.com. So this month we caught up with Katie Jane Le Hupinouer. I apologise, Katie, I end up butchering your name all the time, but Katie Jane Le Hupinouer. She did the Iceland Traverse, hiking, fast packing, 600-kilometre journey on foot, traversing the land of fire and ice from its most southerly point to its most northerly point. We also caught up with Zoe Langley-Watham at the end of August, and she shares more about her love of long distance walking, 100 Mappy Days, and her new company, new business, Head Right Out. We've also caught up with Pippa Lyon, who's fighting for gender equality with the International Isles in the Tour de France in 2019. So we spoke with Pippa at the very beginning of doing the Tour de France, and she was with a group of women, the International Isles, and they did the race before all of the men, so a day before, because women, there is no Tour de France for women. And then we caught up with Pippa after doing that big challenge, and she shared more about that journey and that experience. We've also caught up with Laura Kennington at the end of July, where Laura shared more about the North Sea cycle route, which is the world's longest signposted cycle route, going through 8 countries and over 6,000 kilometres. # Great North Ride. On the beginning of August, I actually did a Tough Girl Podcast Extra episode reflecting back on 2018 and the start of 2019. Plus, I also answer questions from the Tough Girl tribe and share more about what's happening for Tough Girl Challenges in the future. We've also caught up with Ali Young, who's a member of Team GB 24-Hour Racing. She's still chasing a 3-hour PB in the marathon, and she also shares more about racing in the legendary Spartathlon Ultra Race. We caught up with Stephanie Case, who's an ultra runner, human rights lawyer, and is the founder of Free to Run. We've also caught up with Alex Mason, who shared more about through hiking the Appalachian Trail and planning her next big challenge, rowing 2 oceans. So there are tons of great episodes on the Tough Girl Podcast, on Tough Girl Extra. Tough Girl Podcast comes out on a Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time, and Tough Girl Podcast Extra comes out on a Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. So one of the things that was mentioned during this episode was the book club, which sounds absolutely amazing. I also just want to share that in the Tough Girl Tribe, the closed Facebook community that I run for women and the female patrons of the Tough Girl podcast, Alison MacArthur actually runs a Tough Girl Tribe virtual book club as well. So I just want to share a little bit more information about the Tough Girl Tribe book club. So one of the things that we do is Alison creates like a poll in the group where we help to decide what our next reads are going to be. The titles are suggested by members of the Tough Girl Tribe, and basically we put a vote out to members of the Tough Girl Tribe. So a couple of the options that we had were Hidden Nature by Alice Fowler, The Word for Women is Wilderness by Abby Andrews, To the River by Olivia Lang, Castaway by Lucy Irvine, Run, Ride, Sink or Swim by Lucy Fried, The Living Mountain by Nan Shepherd, Run the World by Becky Wade. So we have all of these different books there. They're by female adventurers, female runners, female explorers who are sharing about their challenges. So what we have decided, so thank you for everybody who voted in the Tough Girl Tribe poll. Alison did a screenshot of the final results, and the book that we are currently reading the current book is How Not to Run by Shawnee Watson. Discussions open on the first Saturday of September, and it'll be followed by, so in September, we're going to be reading Two Wheels to Chamonix by Ali Mahoney Johnson, and you can actually listen to Ali Mahoney Johnson on the Tough Girl podcast. In October, The Salt Path by Raynor Wynn. November, Educated by Tara Westover. December, The Living Mountain by Nan Shepherd. January, Run the World by Becky Wade. So this is how it works. The discussions begin on the first Saturday of the following month. So i.e. for 2 Wheels to Chamonix, we read during September and discuss at the beginning of October. So Alison also sets up tribe events for these as well. The lovely Ali Mahoney Johnson has also provided a direct link to her website so that those tribe members can also buy through Ali, and Ali will actually sign your copy as well, which is absolutely awesome. So thank you, Ali, for doing that. And if you have any questions about the book club, feel free to ask. Alison MacArthur is an absolute legend for running this. There's no commitment. You can simply join in with the books that appeal to you, but it can also be good to try something a little bit different. And it's amazing to sort of read books that maybe you wouldn't necessarily pick out the first time and then have these ongoing discussions in the tribe. Now, one of the great things that we've had from this is I spoke with Sally Kettle when we first started the Tough Girl podcast back in August 2015, and Sally actually has written a book. And one of the things that we did is we used Sally's book at the beginning of 2019 as part of the book club. So her book is called Sally's Odd at Sea. So Odd at Sea, ODD at Sea, so Odyssey. And it basically, selected for the monthly book club. And there was loads of really, really interesting discussions around the book. And some of those were, feedback on the cover and finding out more about Sally's life after rowing 2 oceans, so working as a humanitarian aid worker, becoming a personal trainer, working with the athletes in the gym in the 2012 London Olympics, sailing in the last leg of the Clipper around the world, plus so much more. So one of the things that we decided to do was to get Sally back on the Tough Girl podcast extra to almost like to find out what she got up to after she'd rowed the oceans, what life was like as an adventurer, but also to talk through some of the discussion points that were raised in the Tough Girl tribe from the book club. So it's a really, really fascinating episode and well worth listening to. Well, all of the episodes are well worth listening to. So a massive thank you to everybody who is listening, to who is supporting. It's absolutely incredible. And I couldn't do this without the financial support of patrons. So the reason I can produce the Tough Girl Podcast Extra is because I am being financially supported. So if you've been motivated by the Tough Girl Podcast, please sign up as a patron. If the Tough Girl Podcast and Tough Girl Podcast Extra has inspired you, please sign up as a patron. You can sign up from $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. It really does make a massive difference. If you go and visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast, there's more information about how you can sign up. If you don't want to make a regular monthly contribution, I totally get that. But you can also just do a PayPal donation. Buy me a pint, which somebody did. Thank you so much. I love receiving that donation. Buy me a glass of wine, buy me a chocolate bar, send me $5, $10, $50, send me $100, whatever it is that you can afford, especially if you've got value and it's changed your life in some way. Think about it as paying it forward, because the more support that I get, the more episodes and the more interviews that I can do, the more content that I can produce, the more women that can be inspired, the more women that will be getting out there and changing their life. So thank you to everybody who's helping to change my life and in turn helping to change other women's lives out there. Tough Girl Podcast would not be where it is without your support. Thank you so much. Take care, and I will speak to you next Tuesday for another awesome episode of the Tough Girl Podcast. All right, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.